Welcome back, everybody. If you did your homework and you watched the last video, then you already know that if you're planning on getting a residential mortgage, that there's going to be costs associated with getting that loan outside of just your down payment. So to quickly recap, those are closing costs, reserve and prepaid items, and potentially transfer stamps depending on the city in which you're gonna buy. Now the good news is I'm gonna show you all of the different ways that you can offset those costs and explain exactly how to go about doing that on your next loan. So one of the ways that we can go about doing this is by asking the seller to pay for a portion or all of our closing costs. We refer to this as seller paid concessions. Now, depending what type of loan product you're utilizing and how much you're putting down will determine how much money the seller can actually contribute. So let's look at a scenario and pretend that you're purchasing a home at a sales price of $300,000. First, let's say that you're utilizing a conventional loan and you're putting 10% down as your down payment. In that scenario, the maximum amount of money that the seller could contribute would be $9,000, and that's simply 3% of the sales price. Now let's say that you are utilizing an FHA loan. We'll also assume that the purchase price stays the same of $300,000. You could have the seller contribute $18,000 in that scenario because the FHA limit is 6% of closing costs contribution from the seller. Now here's what most people don't realize about these seller paid concessions and why they're such a great tool. Let's use the same scenario that we've been running. $300,000 purchase price, but you ask the seller for $9,000 in closing cost credit. Well, guess what? That's the same thing as you offering $291,000 and asking for no credit. So when the seller understands this and is presented with this information correctly, their net number is still the same. So whether they receive $291 and don't have to pay any closing cost credit, or whether they receive $300 and provide a $9,000 closing cost credit, they are walking away with the same amount of money. But let's look at what you just did. You just avoided paying $9,000 out of pocket. And what happened to that $9,000 is that you just amortized that over 30 years into your loan. So instead of paying $9,000 up front at the closing table, lump sum, you've now borrowed that extra $9,000 over 30 years. So that's why this strategy is tried and true, because the seller can still net the same number and you have to come up with less money out of pocket, and you've now amortized it over 30 years. So it increases your payment very, very little. Another way that we can reduce our closing costs is by actually taking a higher interest rate in exchange for a credit provided by the lender. So let's assume that the par rate was 6.5%. You may take an interest rate of 7% in exchange for a closing cost credit from the lender that can be used to pay down your closing costs. Another way you could lower your closing costs is by utilizing a grant program or a down payment assistance program. Now there's many different programs out there, so I won't get into specifics, but what you need to know is that these programs will provide you a specific amount of money that can be used either towards your down payment, towards your closing costs, or a combination of both. So depending what those guidelines are for that specific grant program or down payment assistance program will tell you how much you can reduce your total closing costs. That's it from me today on this video. If you guys liked what you saw, go ahead, run up the likes, run up the comments. Please make sure you subscribe to my page and let me know what type of mortgage content you would like to learn more about.